Well, the reports on the death of the Kansas City Chiefs have been greatly premature, as we saw in the Monday night win over the Washington Commanders 28-7. And I know what people are going to say right away. Well, it was the Commanders and not the team they were a year ago. True. They didn't have their starting quarterback, Jaden Daniels. True. And it shouldn't be that impressive. Untrue. Because the Chiefs in the first half of that game played arguably their worst half of football all season long. Patrick Mahomes, who went into that game with only 2 interceptions, threw 2 in the first half alone, one of them clearly not his fault. Again, we need a new stat in football. Interceptions not on the quarterback, because the first 2 interceptions in that game, Marcus Mariota, the legendary Oregon Duck, hit Deebo Samuel in the hands, and it bounced off his hands into the waiting arms of Chiefs defensive end Mike Dana. That ended the Washington Commanders' first drive. And on the Chiefs' first drive, they're moving it down the field, and Patrick throws an interception to Hollywood Brown, but the second interception, he hits Travis Kelce right in the hands, bops up in the air, and Bobby Wagner says, "Thank you very much, I'll take that football." So it was a really uneven half of football. And then they played the second half. And the Chiefs went on 3 touchdown drives of 80 yards, 75 yards, and 92 yards to put the game away. Patrick Mahomes, another 3 touchdown performance. He now has 17 passing touchdowns, just 4 interceptions on the year. 2 of them, by the way, off the hands of Travis Kelce. And the Chiefs roll 28-7. The Chiefs are as good as everyone thinks they're not going to be going into this season. Everybody said this was the year they're going to come crashing down to earth. And when they started 0-2, people were like, "See, I told you." And I'm just sitting there saying to myself, okay, wait a minute now. They still didn't have Rashee Rice. And on the third play of game 1, they lost their speedster Xavier Worthy. So you're down to just Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, and Juju Smith-Schuster, right? Those were your receiving options. And in the games against the Chargers, really good defense. The Eagles, really good defense. The Giants, which they won, really good defense. That offense wasn't really explosive. And I'm like, can we just judge the Chiefs as we should objectively, not subjectively, whether you love them or whether you want their demise because you're sick of them winning all the time? And again, they've been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls and won 3 of them. So they've been a constant. Under Patrick Mahomes, they have never not appeared in the AFC Championship game. And if they make it to the AFC Championship game this year, they'll tie the record of 8 straight appearances in a conference championship game, which, of course, was the standard set by Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Their offense is on fire right now. Since they've gotten sort of everything back, and it starts with when they got Xavier Worthy back, and that was the game against the Ravens when they put up 37. Then they have enough points against Jacksonville, and they have the pick 6 at the goal line, which is a 14-point swing, and they took the lead with under 2 minutes to play, and the defense let up a 3rd and 7 on a great throw from Trevor Lawrence down the sidelines in that Monday night game in Jacksonville, and they found a way, the Jags did, to punch it into the end zone. But since that time, they took apart the Detroit Lions. Pretty good team, by the way, Detroit Lions. They won by 2 touchdowns in that game. They absolutely throttle a hapless Raiders organization, 31-0. Again, so people understand how dominant that performance was. They had 30 first downs. The Raiders only had 30 plays, okay? 30 plays. That's the second fewest since the AFL-NFL merger for a team in 1970. And then on Monday Night Football, after a bad first half, they win by 21 against the Washington Commanders. The Chiefs are exactly who they've been. Actually, they're better. I know that people in the organization think that this version of the Chiefs team is better than the team that started 9-0 last year and made it to the Super Bowl before they got dismantled by the incredibly powerful offensive and defensive line of the Eagles in the Super Bowl. A lot of people feel that this Chiefs team is significantly better than the team that made it to a 3rd straight Super Bowl. Now, whether or not they get back there, we'll see. I do feel like, and Michael Strahan said something about this a few weeks ago on the Fox pregame show, and I think it's very relevant, and I don't think people fully appreciate it or understand it. When you've had as much success as the Chiefs have had, and you've been in all these postseason games, these high-stakes games, the incredible comeback in 2021 against the Bills, the road wins a year ago, or 2 years ago rather, in Buffalo, against the Ravens in the AFC Championship game when they were the number 1 seed. Last year, when they had the thrilling game against the Bills where they got the fourth down stop and were able to run out the clock to go back to the Super Bowl again. When you've had all these moments, when you've been in these pressure-packed games, it's hard sometimes to get up for week 3 against the Giants, or week 1 in Brazil against the Chargers, a team they had beaten, I think, 7 or 8 straight times before that. Complacency sets in. And, Andy Reid and company needed to find a way to get through that. And I think they have. And quite frankly, I think one of the reasons they got through it is because they lost 3 times. And they realized their margin for error to get where they want to go is now ridiculously slim. Because the Chiefs won't be judged by Travis Kelce tying Priest Holmes for the most touchdowns in Chiefs history. I think he'll soon pass that in the next couple of games. They won't be judged by Patrick Mahomes becoming the fastest quarterback ever to win the most games under the age of 30, or the fastest, the 250 total touchdowns and all the records he set. That's not what they're going to be judged by. They're going to be judged by what they do in the postseason. And quite frankly, in a weird way, in a really weird way, I think those early losses are going to be very beneficial to Kansas City going forward. It sharpens your focus a little bit when you have no margin for error. You're not going to get many games down the stretch like the Raiders games. They get one more when they play the Raiders, who will be completely devoid of any hope at all by the time they play them again. They have motivation against the Chargers. They get the Chargers at home. But if you look at the Chiefs' schedule, the next 4 weeks are going to determine whether the Kansas City Chiefs are who I think they are and who they think they are, or everyone else is right that it's somebody else's turn. Because after the Monday night win at Arrowhead, they go to Buffalo. Then there's a bye. Then they go to Denver, who is going to be a really difficult task. And then they welcome in the Indianapolis Colts. And then after that, they play the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys could be falling apart by then. And, quite frankly, with the way the Chiefs offense is rolling, I don't think the Cowboys' semblance of an offense, because they don't have any D in defense in Dallas. It's offense for them. I think the Chiefs will be able to do whatever they want offensively, and just who's going to score the more points. And I think the Chiefs' defense, which has been great, by the way, during this little 5-game stretch where they've gone 4-1, they're giving about 14 points a game. The next month will determine whether the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be right back in the AFC Championship game or scrambling to make the playoffs as a wild card, because they still have 2 games with Denver. They have a home game against the Chargers, and they go to the Raiders. And Mahomes' road record in the division is ridiculous. You look it up. I think he's only lost 1 or 2 road division games in his entire career. It's insane how good he is on the road in the division. That one road loss was 2 years ago. It was in Denver, by the way. But the next month will determine the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the problem. They're better than they were a year ago. Their offense is more balanced. Pacheco is running well. By the way, the statistics on Kareem Hunt on 3rd and short or 4th and short are actually better statistically on conversion than the Eagles are in the tush push. That's how good Kareem Hunt has been as a hammer, because the Chiefs don't quarterback sneak anymore. For those that don't remember or might not know, it was a Kansas City sneak in a game in 2019 in Denver where Patrick Mahomes dislocated his kneecap. And he missed like 2.5 or 3 weeks and then came back. They went on to win the Super Bowl that year as the number 2 seed. But they don't do the quarterback sneak anymore. And for years, the Chiefs had real issues on 3rd and short and 4th and short. They don't have those issues anymore. Kareem Hunt is a fucking hammer for them. He had a touchdown running and a touchdown receiving in that Monday night win over the Washington Commanders. They've got that figured out. Their offensive line has stabilized. This kid, Jalen Moore, that they picked up in the offseason, from the 49ers has been great, especially with the young rookie left tackle Josh Simmons away from the team for personal reasons. The good news is they expect him back very soon. So the Chiefs are going to have something they haven't had forever with Patrick Mahomes. Depth on the offensive line, depth at tackle. Trey Smith has missed the last game with some back spasms. Caliendo has filled in admirably. They're going to get Trey Smith back. Creed Humphrey is Creed Humphrey. He's one of the best centers, if not the best center in the game right now. And the kid they tried to tackle a year ago, Kingsley Sua-Atamia, say that 3 times fast, turns out he's not a tackle, he's a guard. He's filled in very nicely as a guard. The Chiefs have a good offensive line. They have balance. Patrick Mahomes has more weapons to throw to right now than he's ever had at any time in his entire career. The depth of the Chiefs receivers is better now than it was when Tyreek Hill was there and the second and third options were, Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle. Fine players, they're not those guys. Or Sammy Watkins at the end of his career, or Mecole Hardman, who's a flash player but not a consistent threat. When you can line up with Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster as your fourth wide receiver, and then, oh, by the way, you have two great tight ends in Travis Kelce and Noah Gray, and a running game that's effective, they're going to be very difficult to beat. But it comes down to the next 3 or 4 games. If they go 3-1 in this stretch, look out. I think the Chiefs probably finish 12-5 at worst, maybe this season, and we'll see what that leads them in terms of the rankings. It's going to be really difficult to catch Indianapolis at 12-5 unless the Colts begin to falter, which means the games, these next 3 games coming up against Denver in your division, against Buffalo, a team you want to have the tiebreaker against, and against Indianapolis, another team you want to hopefully have a tiebreaker against. Suddenly, if you win those 3 games and you have the tiebreaker against Buffalo and you have a tiebreaker against the Colts, and suddenly it's just a 1-game swing between you and Indianapolis when it comes down to playoff seeding, and one more loss by the Colts and you have the tiebreaker there, then it gets really interesting as to what the Chiefs can do. You're going to get the best of Kansas City going forward. All of this is predicated by injury. We all know that anytime someone can get Cam Scatterbo, and that changes the course of everything. But right now, as this team is presently constructed, the Chiefs are a better football team top to bottom than they were a year ago, and that should scare the hell out of everybody in the AFC. And oh, by the way, just as a caveat here, the only 2 quarterbacks that can claim a victory over the Chiefs in the Patrick Mahomes era in the AFC, the American Football Conference, neither of them are playing. Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. No one else in the AFC can say, oh, you know what? Yeah, when Patrick Mahomes was the starting quarterback, we took a playoff win away from the Chiefs. They don't exist. So if they get through this next 3-game stretch unscathed, all those guys that wrote those eulogies, time to start rewriting another script, baby, because they're not going anywhere.